Love, a force beyond reason. It lifts us to the heights of joy and, at times, pulls us into the depths of heartache. Why does something so beautiful also bring confusion and pain? Is love a blessing, a lesson, or both? Let's dive deep into the mystery of love and uncover its true nature. Imagine being deeply connected to someone, then suddenly they start ignoring you. No arguments, just silence and distance. Many think this means love has died. But what if it's the opposite? What if ignoring someone is actually a deeper form of love? Have you ever noticed that sometimes the closer you get to someone, the more you feel the urge to pull away? You're not alone. This happens in all kinds of relationships. Today, we're diving into what famous psychologist Carl Jung called the paradox of intimacy, why the very love that brings us together can sometimes drive us apart. It's confusing and frustrating when it happens, but there are actually deep psychological reasons behind it. By the end of this video, you'll understand what's really happening beneath the surface when distance creeps into your relationships. Better yet, you'll have practical tools to navigate these challenges when they show up in your own life. But first, let me ask you something that might change how you see this whole situation. What if the distance you're experiencing isn't a sign that something's wrong, but actually an invitation to grow? What if those moments when you or your partner pull away aren't relationship problems to fix, but doorways to deeper connection? Get ready to discover truth that could change how you see love forever. Love isn't just emotions or affection. It's much more complex. Before we begin, subscribe to the Wise Minds channel so you don't miss the next videos on personal and spiritual growth. Let's begin. So what hidden parts of yourself might be sabotaging your closest relationships without you even knowing it? To answer that question, we need to talk about something Carl Jung called the shadow self. Don't worry, it's not as scary as it sounds. Your shadow self is simply the part of you that contains all the traits, emotions, and desires you've learned to hide or deny. Think about it. Growing up, you probably learned that some feelings weren't okay to show. Maybe you were told big kids don't cry or nice people don't get angry. So you tuck those parts of yourself away, out of sight. But here's the thing about your shadow. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. It's like stuffing things in a closet and closing the door. The stuff is still there. You just don't have to look at it. Now, what does this have to do with relationships? Well, when you get close to someone, they often unconsciously trigger these hidden parts of yourself. Your partner might say or do something that pokes at those feelings you've tried to ignore. This can feel really threatening because intimacy shines a light on the very things you've tried to keep in the dark. It's like someone opening that closet door when you really don't want them to see what's inside. When this happens, your brain might create distance as a protective mechanism, not because you don't love the person. It's like your mind is saying, whoa, this is getting too close to my hidden stuff. I need some space. You might notice this happening when you suddenly find small annoyances about your partner unbearable. Maybe the way they chew has never bothered you before, but now it's driving you crazy. Or perhaps you start picking fights over little things that never mattered before. Here's the real kicker, and this might be hard to hear. What bothers you most in others often reflects disowned parts of yourself. The traits that drive you absolutely nuts in your partner? There's a good chance those are shadow aspects of yourself that you haven't fully accepted yet. For example, if you get really irritated when your partner is indecisive, you might be struggling with your own hidden uncertainty. If their neediness drives you up the wall, you might be denying your own needs for connection and reassurance. So the next time you feel that urge to create distance in your relationship, ask yourself, what is this person reflecting back to me that I might not want to see in myself? Now that we understand how our shadow self can create distance in relationships, let's talk about something even more fundamental. Did you know that patterns formed in your earliest relationships might be playing out in your adult life right now? When you were a baby, you couldn't feed yourself or keep yourself safe. You depended completely on your caregivers. The way they responded to your needs taught you some of your first and most powerful lessons about relationships. These early experiences help form what psychologists call your attachment style. Basically, your blueprint for how relationships work. This attachment style heavily influences how you approach closeness with partners, friends, and even your own children. There are three main attachment styles, and knowing yours can explain a lot about why intimacy can sometimes feel so tricky. First, there's anxious attachment. If your caregivers were sometimes there for you and sometimes not, you might have developed this style. People with anxious attachment often fear abandonment and worry their partner will leave them. When they sense even a little distance in a relationship, they tend to cling tighter. It's like saying, "Please don't go," by moving closer, asking for reassurance, or sometimes even starting arguments just to get a reaction. If you've ever found yourself checking your phone repeatedly waiting for a text back or feeling panic when your partner needs space, you might have an anxious attachment style. Then there's avoidant attachment. This often develops when caregivers pushed independence too early or weren't emotionally available. People with avoidant attachment tend to value self-reliance above all else and may pull away when things get too close. They might think, "I don't need anyone," and create distance when relationships start to feel too intimate. If you find yourself focusing on your partner's flaws when things get serious or feeling suffocated by normal relationship expectations, you might have an avoidant attachment style. The third type is secure attachment. This develops when caregivers were consistently available and responsive. People with secure attachment can balance closeness and independence. They're comfortable with intimacy, but also respect boundaries. They trust that small disconnections don't threaten the relationship. Here's the good news. Your attachment style isn't fixed forever. With awareness and practice, you can develop more security in your relationships, no matter what your early experiences were. It's like learning to write with your non-dominant hand. It takes practice, but it's definitely possible. Even better, understanding your partner's attachment style helps you respond with compassion rather than judgment. Instead of thinking, "Why are they so clingy?" you might realize, "Oh, they're feeling anxious about our connection." Or rather than assuming, "They don't care about me," you might understand, "They're feeling overwhelmed and need space to feel safe again." When we recognize these patterns, the dance of intimacy becomes less confusing and more like an opportunity to heal old wounds together. So we've talked about the psychological reasons we might create distance in relationships. But what about the physical ones? What if your nervous system is making relationship decisions without consulting you first? Let me introduce you to a part of your body you probably don't think about much: your vagus nerve. It's the longest nerve in your body, running all the way from your brain down through your heart, lungs, and gut. Most people know it helps you relax. But here's something that might surprise you. Your vagus nerve is actually designed to help you connect with others, not just chill out. Think of your vagus nerve as your body's social engagement system. It controls things like the muscles in your face, the tone of your voice, and even your ability to really listen to someone else. All of these things are crucial for bonding with other people. But here's where it gets interesting for relationships. When you feel unsafe emotionally, maybe because your partner said something that hurt your feelings or reminded you of a past relationship, your vagus nerve can trigger what scientists call shutdown response. Your body literally goes into protection mode. When this happens, you might notice your face feeling stiff, your voice getting flat, or your mind going blank during conversations. You might physically turn away or feel the urge to leave the room. This physical response can create emotional distance, even when you consciously want closeness. It's like your body is saying, "Danger, pull back," while your mind is thinking, "But I want to connect." The good news is that you can work with your vagus nerve to improve your relationships. Simple practices like deep breathing, humming, or singing can actually activate your vagus nerve in a positive way. These activities send a message to your body that says, "Hey, it's safe to connect right now." Have you ever noticed how singing together brings people closer? Or how taking a few deep breaths can help you feel more present during a difficult conversation? That's your vagus nerve at work. A well-toned vagus nerve, which you can develop through these simple practices, improves your capacity for authentic connection. It's like strengthening a muscle that helps you stay present with someone else, even when things get emotionally challenging. By working with your body, not just your mind, you can build a stronger foundation for intimacy. This is so important because no matter how much psychological understanding you have, if your body is in shutdown mode, connection will be difficult. So the next time you feel yourself physically pulling away from your partner, take a moment to breathe deeply, hum a favorite song, or even gargle some water, yes, that actually stimulates the vagus nerve. These simple actions can help bring your nervous system back into a state where connection is possible. Now that we understand how our body's connection system works, let's talk about another crucial aspect of intimate relationships: emotional intelligence. But here's a question that might surprise you. What if true emotional intelligence means getting comfortable with uncomfortable emotions? Many people think emotional intelligence, or EQ, is just about being nice all the time. They believe emotionally intelligent people never get angry, always agree with others, and avoid conflicts at all costs. But that's actually a huge misconception. Real emotional intelligence isn't about always being agreeable or avoiding difficult feelings. It's about recognizing emotions in yourself and others, and responding thoughtfully rather than reacting automatically. It's about staying connected during emotional storms, not just during sunny weather. Think about it. If you're only willing to engage with your partner when things are pleasant and easy, you're missing out on the deepest levels of intimacy. True connection comes from knowing that someone will stay present with you through all your emotions, the good, the bad, and the messy. True emotional intelligence includes the courage to have difficult conversations and set clear boundaries. Sometimes the most emotionally intelligent thing you can do is say, "This isn't working for me," or "I need something different." Being honest about your feelings, even when they're uncomfortable, builds more trust than pretending everything is fine when it's not. Here's something many people don't realize. You can learn and improve your emotional intelligence with practice. It's not something you're born with or without. Just like learning a new language or sport, emotional intelligence is a skill you can develop over time. Start by simply noticing your emotions without judging them. When you feel upset with your partner, can you pause and get curious about what you're feeling underneath the anger? Is it hurt, fear, disappointment? The more accurately you can name your emotions, the less power they have to drive unconscious distancing behaviors. Developing emotional intelligence helps you stay present during triggering moments instead of pulling away. When your partner says something that upsets you, rather than shutting down or lashing out, you can say, "I notice I'm feeling defensive right now. Can we slow this conversation down?" The ability to name and validate emotions, both yours and your partner's, is key to maintaining connection, especially during conflict. Saying things like, "I can see why you'd feel that way," or "That makes sense given your experience," creates a bridge between you, even when you disagree. Remember, the goal isn't to become a perfect emotional robot who never gets upset. It's to become someone who can navigate the full range of human emotions without losing connection to yourself or the people you love. We've covered a lot of ground so far, from the shadow self to attachment styles, the vagus nerve, and emotional intelligence. Now, let's bring it all together with some practical strategies you can use right away. But first, let me ask you something. What if the distance in your relationship is actually an opportunity, not a problem? Most of us panic when we feel distance growing in our relationships. We might chase after our partner, start a fight, or withdraw even further. But what if we approach these moments differently? The first strategy is simple but powerful. Notice when you're creating distance and get curious about what's happening inside you. This means paying attention to your own patterns. Do you stop making eye contact? Do you suddenly get busy with work? Do you pick fights over small things? Just noticing these behaviors is the first step to changing them. Once you notice, get curious instead of critical. Ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? What might I be afraid of? What part of myself am I trying to protect? These questions help you understand what's really going on beneath the surface. The second strategy is to practice self-compassion when you discover your own patterns. It's easy to beat yourself up when you realize you've been pushing someone away, but shame only deepens disconnection, both from yourself and from others. Instead, try saying to yourself, "It makes sense that I'm creating distance right now. I'm feeling vulnerable, and this is how I've learned to protect myself." Third, create what I call a distancing vocabulary with your partner. This means coming up with simple, non-blaming ways to name what's happening. For example, you might say, "I notice I'm going into my cave right now," or "I'm feeling that pull-away sensation we talked about." Your partner might say, "I think I'm in anxious attachment mode today." Having these shorthand ways to talk about distance makes it less scary and personal. Fourth, remember that healthy relationships require both intimacy and space. Many couples make the mistake of thinking they should be completely merged all the time. But just like you need both inhaling and exhaling to breathe, relationships need both connection and separation to stay healthy. Sometimes distance isn't a problem to fix, but a natural rhythm to respect. Fifth, try to view moments of distance as invitations to deeper self-knowledge and growth. When you feel the urge to pull away, it's often because something important is being touched inside you. Maybe an old wound, a forgotten need, or a boundary that needs to be expressed. These moments are like signposts pointing to areas where healing is possible. Remember, the goal isn't perfect closeness, but authentic connection that honors both people's needs. Perfect closeness doesn't actually exist, and chasing after will only leave you frustrated. Instead, aim for a relationship where both people can be honest about their needs for both connection and space. When you approach the paradox of intimacy with awareness and compassion, distance no longer has to be the enemy of love. Instead, it becomes part of the beautiful, complex dance that makes relationships so rich and growth-filled. We've covered a lot in this video, and I want to thank you for staying with me through this exploration of the paradox of intimacy. So where does all this leave us? You now understand that the paradox of intimacy, this dance of closeness and distance, is a natural part of relationships, not a sign of failure. When you or your partner pull away sometimes, it doesn't mean your relationship is broken. It means you're human with all the complexity that brings. You've learned how several powerful forces shape your capacity for connection. Your shadow self holds the parts of you that feel scary to reveal. Your attachment style, formed in childhood, creates patterns in how you approach closeness and distance. Even your nervous system, through your vagus nerve, influences whether you stay connected or shut down during challenging moments. And your emotional intelligence determines how well you navigate the full range of feelings that come with truly knowing another person. Most importantly, you now have practical tools to navigate distance when it appears in your relationships. You can notice your patterns, practice self-compassion, create a shared vocabulary with your partner, respect the natural rhythms of togetherness and separation, and view moment of distance as opportunities for growth. Remember, intimate relationships are one of the most powerful paths to self-discovery available to us. The people closest to us have an uncanny ability to trigger our deepest wounds, our oldest patterns, and our most vulnerable places. This isn't because they're trying to hurt us. It's because close relationships naturally bring our unconscious material to the surface where we can finally see it and heal it. By approaching this dance of closeness and distance with curiosity instead of fear and compassion instead of judgment, you can build relationships that are both more authentic and more fulfilling. You'll spend less energy fighting against the natural rhythms of intimacy and more energy understanding yourself and your partner. The next time you feel that pull away, either in yourself or in someone you love, I hope you'll remember what we discussed today. Instead of panicking or pulling away even further, you might pause, take a breath, and ask yourself, what is this moment trying to teach me? What opportunity for growth is hiding inside this distance? Because in the paradox of intimacy, sometimes the path to deeper connection runs straight to the territory of separation. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, please share it with someone who might benefit. We all know someone who struggles with the push and pull of relationships, and sometimes just knowing these patterns are normal can bring huge relief. Leave a comment below sharing your own experiences with the paradox of intimacy. What patterns have you noticed in your relationships? Have you ever felt the urge to pull away right when things were getting close? Your story might help someone else feel less alone. Consider practicing self-compassion and compassion for others as you navigate your relationships. And finally, remember that the journey toward authentic connection, both with yourself and with others, is just that, a journey. Be patient with yourself as you practice these new ways of understanding and navigating intimacy. Each step toward awareness is a victory worth celebrating. And I hope these insights bring more understanding and connection to your relationships. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.